It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders. You know, Chuck, all the polling shows that the number one issue in Wisconsin is the economy. And when you take a look at economic factors, you see some that are very promising. Stock market is doing well. State revenues are coming in at a good rate. The unemployment rate's pretty good in Wisconsin. But if you ask the voters how they're doing on the economy, they say, I'm struggling. I can't afford to pay for the bills because of inflation. So how is the economy? What's the impact going to be of the economy, the top issue in this race, on the vote for president and on down the ticket?
Well, clearly at the presidential level, the Republicans feel they have an advantage by talking about the problems with prices. Although that was an international phenomenon resulting from a lot of supply chain issues, there were some possible impacts from the Inflation Reduction Act, but that was largely it. But it is hard to get over the fact that we have historically low unemployment. We have more than 3 million people employed in the state of Wisconsin. It's a record that we've been holding on to for the last year. The first time we got over 3 million employed people. Unemployment rate is way more than a point below the national average. So there are a lot of really good things here, and I think that makes it tougher. And you'll notice that even the legislative Republicans who are in the majority are running on the fact that the Wisconsin economy is great because they've done such a good job of managing state finances, which is not true. By the way, governors and legislatures don't have a lot to do with the economy, despite what people feel. And yet it does drive elections. But I think that it's going to be a hard sell. And by the way, I think this is one of the reasons why you're seeing some separation of Wisconsin versus the other blue wall states. Wisconsin is running a little bit ahead, not necessarily Michigan, but ahead of Pennsylvania. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the economy is better. But here's the thing. Wisconsin is one of those states where abortion is going to be a big factor because we have this uncertainty, because we have the 1849 law. And people in Wisconsin know that access to an abortion hangs by the thread of whether or not we have a progressive or a conservative Supreme Court in Wisconsin. And they also know you have a very conservative legislature. So I think between the abortion issue, the fact that the immigration issue has been blunted because, first of all, there aren't that many people coming across the border. Now it's really reduced. And Donald Trump said, I don't want to solve the problem. I'd rather have an issue for the campaign, which feeds into this narrative which Democrats are building that he's all about him. He's not about you. I think these things are working to our advantage. And I think the other advantage that Democrats have here, even though the economy and some of these other issues are important, and I think that Wisconsin's economy actually is more helpful in Wisconsin than it is hurtful, and as it may be in some other states for Democrats. On top of everything else, Democrats have some issues like abortion, like the legislature, like the fact that for the first time in a long time, we actually have competitive seats, which is driving enthusiasm out in districts across the state. I think those things, there's going to be a bubble up of enthusiasm that's going to get more people to the polls from the ground up. So for a variety of reasons, I think the economy and other things are going in the direction of progressives, in the direction of Democrats. And I think you will be surprised on election day at how much more Democrats in Wisconsin do a great job of winning the election and by a better margin than they do even in the rest of the blue wall states and the other competitive states.
So I think I sense that there's a dissonance between the way the voters feel and the way that the media and the Democrats feel about the economy. The Democrats and the media are all saying, have you seen this number? It's great. Have you seen this number? It's great. And the voters are kind of like, hey, I can't pay the bills. What are you talking about? And I think that if Republicans are smart, they tap into that. And you say that it's, the state legislature and the governor don't have much to do with the economy. Overall, that is true. But they had a couple of big choices this year in the Wisconsin legislature and the governor with regards to people's finances. The Republicans passed the largest middle-class tax cut in state history, would have meant about $538 per family. There's a lot of families who would like that money. The governor vetoed it. The Democratic legislators stood up for the governor's veto. I think people go, wait, you thought the government needed the money more than I did? What? And I also think the same thing with the Republicans' proposal to eliminate taxes on retirement income. There's a lot of seniors who are struggling. They didn't get a raise last year. They're trying to work on the same fixed budget with rising costs. And the Republicans said, let's eliminate taxes on retirement income. and the governor vetoed that. I think there's some splaining to do to the voters from the Democrats for why they didn't make it harder for everybody to pay these bills, because they had a chance to cut people's taxes, leave more money in your paycheck, and they let it pass because they want that money for spending in the future.
The bottom line here is that's a real inside baseball game, and we are the insiders. But the reality is the general public doesn't know that, nor do they know that Governor Evers also proposed that there be further tax cuts for them as well. But he also wanted to help fund K-12 education, which people across this state have always supported dramatically. And I think this is the Achilles heel of the Republicans on spending. No, people don't want the government to have that money, but they do want their kids well educated. They want their teachers to be paid adequately and enough so that they can actually have teachers. For the first time ever in Wisconsin, we're starting to see teacher shortages and problems. I just talked with a person today who works on the playground at a school and talked with that person about things and different things about what happened with COVID, how did the kids do? And I'll tell you what, parents are focused on those kids, grandparents are focused on those kids. And whenever they hear this story that the Republicans just want to give the money back to them and there was nothing to be spent, they know that they're having to vote on referenda to allow buildings to be built and things. They're not that naive. So I don't think that message is going to work. And by the way, that's why you haven't seen that message advanced by the Republicans in many ads, because they know that they've got real vulnerabilities there on not taking care of PFAS and the pollution that you may suffer and your children may ingest in the water that they drink, or not getting adequate public education. So this is the traditional battle between Republicans and Democrats. But I'll tell you what, I think almost all of this is being lost in this overarching message that Donald Trump has. And I'll tell you what, that skull is starting to wear thin on people. And I think that 1994 broke dramatically for the Republicans. By the way, I was running for governor at that time. Didn't help me at all either. But I'll tell you what, this year won't be like that bad. I think that this more and more, I see every defining moment lately has gone in the Democrats' favor. The change to Kamala Harris, a good convention, a great debate. I think that you are going to see here a potential collapse of the Republicans. Now, that's not going to mean like it did in the old days, 15-point difference. But if Kamala Harris were to win Wisconsin by 3 or 4%, that would have dramatic differences on legislative races. And I think that could be happening around the country. And we'll see. It's not there yet, but I think there's a real potential for that because Donald Trump is delivering his message very poorly and people have had enough.
Well, the top issue in Wisconsin is going to be the economy. We'll see which side wins it. At the moment, all cycle long, the Republicans have had the lead on that issue.
We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.